Welcome, everyone, to It's a Wrap with Rap. I am your host, Ron Rappaport. This podcast features people who have overcome life's challenges and adversities, people who can inspire and motivate, and people who can educate us on an assortment of topics. My guest today is Bryan Lee, better known as Bullseye the Clown. Bullseye the Clown may seem like an unlikely bullying expert, but with over 25 years' experience navigating around and developing innovative tactics to deal with bullies, he is a one-of-a-kind force to be reckoned with. Don't let the makeup, the red nose, and the colorful clown shoes fool you. He takes no prisoners when coaching the bullied on how to stand up, speak out, and reclaim their authority over their bullies. Unapologetic, he uses wit, charm, and humor to deliver training and coaching that to some may seem a little controversial and oversimplistic. Bullseye the Clown received his Bachelor of Arts in Comprehensive Theater and Communications from Ashland University in Ohio. Throughout his career as an actor and stand-up comedian, he employed psychodrama techniques and the secrets of body language to not only read what the bully is truly thinking, but also to create characters to get himself out of some very compelling situations. Bullseye is not your ordinary clown. He is an award-winning humanitarian clown who specializes in anti-bullying, fighting injustice, curing invisibility, and loneliness. Welcome, Bullseye, to the podcast.
Hello. How are you?
I'm great. Glad to have you. A real honor to have you here on the show. Bullseye, can you tell us what were your growing up years like, and tell us about you being bullied in school?
Well, my parents divorced when I was very, very young. So probably I was in kindergarten or first grade or so when they got divorced. And so I went to live with my mother and my stepfather. And he was an alcoholic and very abusive. And so I kind of dealt with that at home. And then, of course, at school, I was the little fat kid. So I got picked on for being fat. So I would have people who would push me into lockers and knock me down and call me names. And I was always picked last for all of the sports teams because I wasn't very outgoing or very athletic at the time. So that was kind of what my whole, not only my childhood, but my high school. It was kind of like that all the way through high school. So wow. I was like, I can't wait till I'm 18 so I can get out of this mess.
Yeah. Now, you were an actor and stand-up comedian. Can you tell us about that part of your life?
So in school, I went to Ashland University in Ashland, Ohio. I was a theater major, and I was also my other major was in communications. And so right after college, believe it or not, my first job, I don't know if you remember ever seeing Mr. Wizard on television.
Yeah, sure.
But Mr. Wizard, he hired people called Mr. Wizard assistants, and he would send them all over the country and do science programs as assembly programs for children. So that was my very first job right out of college, was going to do Mr. Wizard. And so I was traveling to elementary schools and high schools and junior high schools all over. At that time I was living in Ohio. So I was going through Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and all those places doing that. And in college, whenever I was performing in the plays and stuff, I always got the comedy part. And so my friend said, when this tour is over, you should think about stand-up comedy. And I'm like, well, I don't really know anything about stand-up comedy. And it just so happened while I was on that tour, I picked up a book that said, it was called Stand-Up Comedy, the Book by Judy Carter. And it was like how to write a stand-up act and how to, I had comedy clubs listed in the back of the book. And I'd never heard of Judy Carter. So there was a phone number in the back. I called it up. And I said, hey, I want to know if Judy Carter is coming to Ohio. I want to know if she's funny. I've never heard of her. And it was her on the phone.
Wow.
So she has an open mouth, insert foot. And she said, well, yes, I'm funny. And just for that, I am coming to Ohio for 4 shows. And you are going to be my opening act. So you need to read this book, learn how to write jokes, and you're going to open for me. And so that is basically how I got started doing stand-up comedy. I didn't even do open mics right away. I just went right from buying a book to opening for someone. So first
crazy.
night totally was.
Yeah,
first night was terrible. And so after I totally bombed the first night, we went back to the hotel room, and she kind of okay, we need to rewrite these jokes. These are terrible.
You probably didn't have the delivery down and all that, She kind of threw you in there,
That's right.
Yeah. Bullseye, let's talk about the bullying issue. Can you please tell our audience the story of why you became a clown in 2018 and why you continue to clown and why a clown is a good spokesperson for anti-bullying?
Probably if you had told me even 5 or 6 years ago that I would, at 47 years old, change my whole career path, become a clown and start traveling the world dressed up like this, I would probably have told you were crazy. But my dad, in 2018, he passed away, and my dad never traveled. And I remembered years ago seeing a movie called Patch Adams. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie or not, with Robin Williams.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Well, I'm always fascinated when there are movies about real people. And so I went on Google and I Googled Patch Adams, and I found out that he was actually a real person. And he does these clown tours all over all over the world. And so I thought, okay, when my dad passed away, he left me a little bit of money. So I thought, he never traveled, never went anywhere. So as a way to honor him, I thought, well, I will just maybe do one of these tours. And the next tour coming up was a clown tour to Russia. And so I had no idea about being a clown. I knew stand up. I knew how to do stand up, but I had no idea what a clown really did. And so I contacted Patch Adams and his people, and they said, oh yeah, you can come along. You don't need any experience. We'll kind of just throw you in and, we'll show you what to do. And
where have you heard that before?
So exactly, I know. And so I just bought what I thought were clowny things, and some clown shoes and some stuff. And I grabbed a suitcase and I packed all this stuff up, and I got on an airplane and I flew to Russia. And it is really funny because my sister said, what if you get to Russia and there's nobody there? And I'm like, oh, I never thought of that part.
Don't think about that.
And so that's kind of how it was. And in Russia, it was, he wanted us to start as a clown from the moment we left home. He wanted us to wear our clown costume to the airport, through customs and through all that stuff. So
wow.
We didn't quite do what he told us to. We kind of wore colorful things, but we didn't wear the clown nose because we weren't sure if we would get arrested or not.
You never know over there.
But for 14 straight days, we were always in clown costume. I mean, we went to children's hospitals and orphanages and clowned in their subway system and clowned out on the street. And we actually went to the Russian ballet and we were dressed as clowns. And everywhere we ate, we were dressed as clowns. I mean, we never got out of our costume. So the costumes kind of stunk after a few days. So, and honestly, I really never thought once I came back that I would ever do that again. I'm like, okay, that was a nice little thing to have done. But while I was on that clown tour, there were a lot of interesting things that happened and a lot of life-transforming things I felt that happened. And I thought, wow, there must be something to this whole clown thing. I can go into a couple stories if you want me to.
Yeah. Go into tell us, because I'm trying to get why is a clown a good spokesperson for anti-bullying?
Okay. Well, as far as why I really continued to clown once I got back, I just saw the impact that clowns had on the public and just people in general. A quick story is we were actually in a bus. There were 35 clowns in a bus, and we were traveling to an orphanage. And we came to a stoplight, and I looked out the window, and there was a bus stop there. And probably about 10 people were sitting over at the bus stop. And there was one old woman, and she was holding her groceries. And so I just kind of pecked on the window. And she looked up, and I'm not sure what she probably thought when she saw a bus full of clowns, probably like we had escaped from some circus prison or something. And so I just started to wave at her, and she just kind of waved at me just a little bit. And then all of a sudden I waved a little bit faster, and she waved a little bit faster. And then all of the clowns on the bus saw what I was doing, and they turned and they looked at the woman, and they all started to wave. And about that time, the light changed and we pulled off. And as we pulled off, I noticed that the old woman sat down on a park bench and she started to cry. Why she started to cry, I don't know. Maybe we reminded her of the circus when she was a kid. Maybe that was the first time somebody had seen her that day or that week. Right. Or maybe she was just happy that we didn't kidnap her while we were stopped at the bus stop.
She was probably glad to have the attention.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what I thought. And so even though I was never actually out on the street and we were in a bus and she was out on the street, right away, I saw the impact that we had as clowns on someone. And so things like that for this entire 14-day period kept happening. And so once I came back, I thought, oh boy, there's something to this. And so you're wanting to know also why a clown is a is a good anti-bullying expert. And I always say, well, whenever I was being bullied in school, I came up with distractions and I came up with like comic one-liners. If a bully came up to me, I'd always find something kind of witty and zingy to say. And
Right.
so I became dubbed as the class clown. And so I figured, the bullies are what created the class clown. So it's only fitting that the class clown is the one who shuts the bullies down. So that was
yeah.
And, and what I realized when I did this clown tour, even though it was 2018 and I was 47 at the time, I was still harboring a lot of this animosity and resentment from a lot of the bullying that happened. And I was still harboring this resentment from my stepfather, who was mean and abusive. And when I went on this tour and we were focused for 14 straight days on doing nothing but making other people happy. I mean, that was our focus. I mean, it's like, okay, we're going to make this kid laugh. It's the last thing we do. And that's all we focused on for 14 straight days. When I came back, I no longer had that resentment, that animosity. It was kind of like that whole burden just kind of lifted. And so I knew that clowning is not only a way to help other people, but it's a way to help the person who was bullied or had some type of trauma when they were young. Patch Adams has also taken a lot of veterans who have post-traumatic stress, and he's taken them on clowning tours. And he actually did a documentary about that as well, and that's on YouTube. You can actually find that on YouTube. But he took a bunch of vets, and it was just amazing to see the transformation in the vets who, couldn't even hear like a car horn honk or something like that without, having some major trauma, and just watching their transformation over that 14-day period. I think they went to Guatemala. But it really is amazing what just clowning and doing nice things for other people can do for your own soul and for your own healing.
It was definitely a transformational moment for you. Definitely. Bullseye, what defines bullying? And how does it differ from other types of abuse? And please describe the different types of bullying that are perpetuated out there.
Well, a lot of people just lump everything under bullying. Well, I was bullied today because somebody said something to me. Usually bullying, I always say, is something that's repetitive. So it's something that happens over and over and over again. You can tease somebody and you can call somebody a name and it like be a friend, and you can kind of do it as a teasing gesture. But then if it gets to a point where, your friend is saying, hey, it really bothers me when you call me this particular name. Can you please stop calling me that name? Yeah. But it's something that's repetitive and it repeats over time and over time. A lot of times what people consider bullying is not. A lot of people consider discipline. If your parents paddle you or if your parents try to correct you for something, they lump that under bullying. And discipline is something else that we need in society. Otherwise, everybody's kind of running amok. But there's a difference also between bullying, what I consider bullying, and assault. There are times when bullying can actually lead into something being illegal. So there are times where it's illegal. And that is if you're, beating somebody to the point where, there's no return, and you're ready to know the different types of bullying. There are a lot. I always say the physical bullying is a pretty common one. And so that's, pinching, pulling somebody's hair, smacking them, kicking them, knocking them down. Yeah. There's what I call social bullying. And to me, that is like when you ignore someone on purpose, or you purposely invite everybody to a party, but you exclude somebody, or you won't allow somebody to sit at your table, or you kind of start a rumor about them. That's what I consider like social bullying, where you're kind of working at tearing down somebody's integrity, and you're just ostracizing them. Cyberbullying, of course, is a big one right now.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. So, that's bullying on the internet, back whenever I was a kid, we didn't have the internet. So, we didn't have all the cyberbullying and Twitter, if they wanted to bully us back then, they made house calls. they just showed up on our doorstep, grabbed my underwear, and run up the flagpole. That's how they that's how they did that back then.
Would it be fair? Would it be fair to say that bullying, there would have to be an intent to do?
Oh yes, yeah, and that's the other thing, the intent.
Yeah.
So it's got to be, usually it's repetitive, and then the intent is there to harm someone. Okay. Because like I said, a lot of times, like when you're just teasing someone, you're doing that in a playful manner, but also the intent. If your intention is to harm someone, then it's bullying. And then, like I said, if it becomes to a point where it's really, really physical, then that goes into either harassment or the assault. And so that's something completely different than the bullying.
Now, in your opinion, what defines a bully, and do bullies have common traits?
Well, bullies are somebody who like power, and they're trying to get that power in any way they can. So a lot of times bullies are people who feel that they have some type of power, whether it's they're stronger than you, or whether it's they're at a position that's higher than you, whether that's like a school teacher over a student, or a principal even over a teacher, or your boss. So a lot of times the bully at first and foremost feels that they have power and control. That's the big thing. What was the other question?
Do the bullies have any common traits?
I can't say this 100%, but a lot of times I think bullies learn the behavior. I really don't think that bullies are born the way they are. I think they're made. And so I think that a lot of times it's whether they're doing something that they learned from home or from a previous relationship or something. I believe it's big. And I know I actually just wrote a book, and in the book, I actually have a letter from my bully who wrote me a letter maybe 3 or 4 years ago and kind of apologized. And so I actually tried to carry on a conversation with them on Facebook for a while because I wanted to kind of get to the bottom of it. What was the problem? What was going on? And a lot of times it was, they're getting bullied by somebody else, or they're feeling pressure from someone else to fit in with a particular group.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they try to fit in with a particular group, and part of their looking cool is to, hey, let's trip the fat kid. Hey, let's, put a little sign on the back of the fat kid. Let's knot the little geeky girl's hair, or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
And so that they feel that makes them fit in.
Now, you employ psychodrama techniques and body language reading to read what a bully is thinking. Can you explain to our audience how you do that?
Well, one of the things I like to do is I like to do something that I call prescripting with a lot of the people. So since you know that I was a theater major and I was a stand-up comic, what I like to do a lot of times is, what are the bullies always saying to you? And so if you know they're going to say this particular thing, or they're going to act this particular way, then let's kind of prescript what you can say, or prescript an action that you can take before this even happens to you, so that when it does happen to you, you're ready for it. Almost like you would be if you're getting ready for a role, or you're getting ready to be in a movie or something like that. It's kind of knowing what you're doing, what's going to happen. I did that when I did stand-up. Whenever I was a stand-up comic, I wrote jokes about, hey, if somebody tells me, hey, you suck, I could write a joke. I'd write a joke about that. Or if a waitress dropped a tray of drinks, or if the lights went out, or whatever happened to go on, I would have a joke for everything, just in case it ever happened. Sometimes I never used it. But that was one of those things that I did. Another thing I did was I like to cause distraction. I distracted the bully in any way I could. Yeah. And that might be whether it's, you scream fire, you jump up and down, you play dead. And a lot of times I would prescript those too. Hey, if they come to me today I'm going to lie on the ground and play dead and scream and, yell fire or whatever. But I kind of prescripted those things. That way I knew what to do when that happened. I didn't always feel confident doing it. Sometimes the first couple of times you try it, people probably think that you're some psycho patient at a mental ward, but it didn't matter to me.
They probably left you alone though if you did something.
They did, yeah. They got to the point. they got to the point where they're kind of like, we don't know what he's going to do, so let's just leave him alone. Well, because he just makes a big scene wherever he is. And so that's the kind of things that I like to work through people, and of course, granted, probably if you're, a female executive at, IBM, you probably don't want to be laying in the middle of the boardroom playing dead.
Yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah.
But so, you also have to kind of create the distraction that actually will work for whatever particular place you're in.
Whatever scenario you're in. Yeah.
Right.
Hey, what are the main things about people that make them a target of being bullied? And can you discuss children in school, in the school setting, adults in the workplace, and people who stay in their neighborhood most of the time? What are the things that make them a target?
Well, a lot of times what makes them a target, I kind of mentioned some before, but if you appear weaker to a bully, so, like a lot of times just your body language. Body language really says a lot about you. So, I mean, if you're one of those quiet people, you tend to walk with your head down, you don't really look up. That makes people a target. Something else that sounds really silly, but something that makes people a target is if you're perceived as like less financially secure as somebody. So say that you look like the little poor kid, or you look like, you don't have money. The people who do have money, they feel that they can prey. They feel that they can prey on you just because you appear like you're poor, so those are. And I consider, people who are outcasts become a target. And what I like the people that really frustrates me the most that people pick on or bully are the homeless.
I knew you were going to say that. And I agree. Yeah, it's horrible.
Well, and because I've always looked at it this way, every one of us is one big catastrophe away from being homeless.
You're right.
You could lose your job and your house could catch on fire. If you didn't have insurance or you're waiting for insurance, you have nowhere to go. So you're out on the street. And so, that is the one group of people that I feel get the society bullies the most are the people who are homeless. And people are bullied, or they bully people who they're afraid of or they don't understand, So instead of actually sitting down and getting to know people, and that's what this clowning thing really did, in Russia. If we encountered people who were homeless on the street, we would sit down and we couldn't really carry on the conversation with them because they spoke Russian and we were English, but, but sometimes just kind of sitting there and maybe showing them a trick or blowing bubbles or playing with a balloon or doing whatever, just let them know that, they were seen and that they were visible. And that people saw that they were there. They think that's all they want. I mean, they just want they just want to be part of society again, and right now they're just down on their luck.
So what
Can
advice?
I answer the questions?
Yeah, you did great. What advice would you give to someone being bullied? And does the advice would the advice differ for a male or a female?
One, I don't know. I don't think the advice would differ from a male to a female. And at least for me, I mean, I guess I can't say it because I'm a male, but
well, your opinion. Yeah, your opinion.
yeah. But one of the big things, every book you pick up on bullying, the first thing every book will tell you is to tell someone. Tell someone you're being bullied. And even in my book, I bring that topic up. But I don't quite have the same philosophy that some people. Yes, I do agree you should tell someone, but just because you tell someone you're being bullied does not mean that the bullying will stop. And sometimes it may actually get worse because now it's going to tick the bully off because you told someone.
Yeah.
Part of telling somebody is making it known that you are being bullied, but then there is a responsibility on that person that you told to follow through, whether it's a teacher, so does the teacher take it to the principal? Do they contact a guidance counselor? A lot of times what happens is if somebody tells somebody and then that person they tell kind of drops the ball and doesn't. So sometimes you just have to rely on your own self. So sometimes you have to employ some other tactics in order to get the point across, Like I said, I do some journal. My book that I wrote that has like some journals, like it's part journal, part text, and so you can actually write down, some stuff, and then who's who bullied you? When did it happen? Who did you tell? Did anything happen? Did they do anything about it? If they didn't do that, then let's take this list to somebody who can do something about it. If they don't do anything about it, what do you do then? So it's kind of an involved process, but telling someone is maybe the first step. But like I said, it's not the last step.
Right. So it sounds like for our audience out there, documentation is the key.
Yes. Yeah, keep track of everything, even if it's online, even if it's a cyberbully. If you're going to delete like a tweet or something, if you're going to delete something off of your Twitter account or whatever, get a screen capture of it first before you do that. Just keep a list. Yeah. And I always say report there, like online. If it's cyberbullying, I say report it. Every platform, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, or they all have some type of place where you can click to report this as spam or report this as hate speech or something to that effect. And so you can always just click onto something and report it. And I always say report it, because chances are if they're doing it to you, they're doing it to someone else.
Right. So I want to talk about cyberbullying, and it's defined as bullying that takes place over digital devices like cell phones, computers, and tablets. It can occur through SMS, text, apps, or online and social media forums or gaming, where people can view, participate in, or share content. It includes sending, posting, or sharing negative, harmful, false, or mean content about someone else. It can include sharing personal or private information about someone else, causing embarrassment or humiliation. So the question for you is, what types of cyberbullying have you run across in your work? And what advice do you have for people facing that problem? I guess you answered that with the documentation, but what types of cyberbullying have you run across?
I had a Twitter account for a little while. I still have one. I never used Twitter because to me that seems like the least policed, I guess, the police platform. There is so much cyberbullying on Twitter, and usually that mainly it's just negative comments or you're stupid and or there's cuss words or whatever. And to me, what I don't like about Twitter is that anybody can follow you on Twitter. You can't say, oh, I don't want that person to follow me. I don't want that person to see my post or whatever. And so for Twitter, I just decided, this is probably the worst platform for cyberbullying. And so I avoid that one. I just refuse to go onto Twitter. I like the fact, like Facebook, I like the fact that if somebody friends me, the first thing I do, and I suggest that everybody who's listening do this, if somebody friend requests you and you have no idea who they are, go to their Facebook page, because it'll allow you to check their page out. And I scroll down probably, quite a ways, and I look at all their posts. If they're cussing and they're telling people off and they're being negative to other people, then chances are if they're going to be a friend of yours, they're going to do the same thing to you. And so right away, I police who I allow to be my friend. Everybody says, well, you're a public figure and you only got 1,200 people or friends on Facebook. I said, yes, that's because I delete a lot, and sometimes one or two will get through. They look like they're a fairly decent person. So I will say, okay. And then but if they start on my page, I can police my own page and I click, and we all have, things we believe in and things we don't believe in, but even things I don't believe in, I do know that there's a group of people who do. And so there's two sides to everything. So I try to be as open as possible. But at the same time, if somebody's trying to bully me into believing what they believe, and that's another big one right now. And I was just actually reading a story online about that today that kind of upset me. Regarding J.K. Rowling and all of that stuff that's going on with that. But not only do I police people who are on there, I do report them a lot if I feel that it's necessary. But you know what? Your social media pages are your social media pages. You're on there to have fun and to be social and to network with people and to talk to people and talk to friends. And if somebody is interfering with that, then I say block them and delete them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I'm to the point, I will try to engage with them a little, so like if somebody posts like a negative comment, on my page, I might say, well, thank you so much for, commenting on my page or my post or my video. I'm sorry you didn't like it, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully I'll do something you like better in the future. And try to, just try to smooth that over and see if I can do that. But if I see that that's not going to happen, then it's just report, block, and delete.
That's report, block, and delete. Good advice. Good advice. What, Bullseye, are the long-term mental health effects if bullying in any form is not addressed for both the bully and the bullied? What are the long-term mental health effects, in your opinion?
Well, you might become a clown. That's pretty mental. No,
End result, clown.
No. Well, one of the things that I found, for me anyway, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a defect, I guess that's not the word I would use, but a lack of self-confidence is something that a lot of bullied people take with them, and something that, I always tell people I should have been a household name by now. I was going to be this big actor, and I was going to be this big stand-up comic, and I was going to do all these wonderful things. And I let what people tell me, and people who bullied me, I believed, right? And I played into all of that stuff. So I had this lack of self-confidence that I didn't go out for the gigs that I should have gone out for, and the audition for the things I should have done, because I didn't think, I didn't have the right body type. Oh, my teeth don't look right. Oh, this doesn't look right. And even you see that a lot right now on Facebook. I mean, how many times or Instagram, you see people go, oh, am I hot or not? Can you click this button if you think I'm pretty, or if I think I'm ugly? And, and so it's like we all deal with this body image issue and self-confidence. And going back to a question I don't think that I answered earlier when you asked about people who kind of stay where they are, there are two things that happen to people who are bullied. One is they become uber super successful to kind of tell the bully, hey, screw you, I'm going to be so super successful that kind of like people like Lady Gaga or Susan Boyle, who were both bullied when they were younger, and now are mega superstars. And then you have a majority of people, like a lot of people, who then decide, what, they listen to that small town mentality of, oh, you're not going to amount to anything. So they just never move away. They don't believe in themselves. They get a job at McDonald's, and not that there's anything wrong with working in a McDonald's. Ronald McDonald did that for quite a while.
You kind of look like him, by the way.
That's right. So, but I'm just saying, a lot of us will and what I did for a lot of years, I worked at a job that I felt was not something I should be working at. I was college educated. I was a very creative person, and here I find myself working, at a place like Amazon.com, just fulfilling orders, just doing stuff that I, should not be doing, that I felt that I really was more qualified to do something else. But so a lot of times you just kind of get that vibe. And if I could say, and I know we're probably going to answer this question later, and I may say it again later, but my thing is, take note of who's actually bullying you and what they're saying. For many, many years, I really just took all this bullying and stuff from my stepfather, who was an alcoholic. And my stepfather was an alcoholic who never held down a job. I don't think he ever had a job the whole time that I knew him. And so I'm like, here's this guy telling me I'm not going to amount to anything. And he has no job and has never had a job, been mooching off of my mom his whole life. And, and here I'm taking everything he says to heart. What qualifies him to tell me that I'm not going to amount to anything when he doesn't,
Evaluate the source that it's coming from.
Yeah, very much so.
And we do a lot of inspirational podcasts here. And one of the big things is people have to get their self-confidence up. They have to look people in the eye, and they have to take that leap and go forward. They not listen to what other people say. They just have to get that self-confidence back.
One of the things that changed my whole outlook, really, believe it or not, I was a television preacher. I don't know if you've ever heard of Joyce Meyer.
No, can't say.
but she considers herself a Bible teacher. But one of the things she said one time was, when we're all born with two things. We're all born with power and authority, and the devil also has power, but the devil doesn't have the authority to use his power unless we give it to him.
Yeah.
And that kind of changed my whole outlook, because I took the devil to be the bully. So I'm like, the bully might have power, and the bully might have more power than me or more money than me, but he doesn't have the authority to bully me unless I give him that authority. And I give him that authority by not saying anything, by not fighting back,
Right.
By keeping silent. I keep giving that bully the authority.
By submitting.
Absolutely. And so once I kind of realized that they didn't have that authority, which I thought they had,
Right.
because they had more money than me or whatever, that changed my whole outlook. And it was that kind of, and I even actually have a chapter in my book about power versus authority, and how people use their power, and how you can actually take your authority back.
Bullseye, are we doing enough as a society to combat bullying?
No. Short answer, no, we're not. The problem becomes, everywhere you go, there's either some type of a no tolerance policy at our company for bullying, or there's a no tolerance to harassment or whatever. But the problem is they don't have a specific plan in place. They don't, they should have a very detailed thing. Okay, so from the bottom all the way to the top. Okay, so right. if your entry level person is being bullied, who do they go to, and what is their responsibility once you have gone to that particular person? What is that person's responsibility to make sure that this gets taken care of? And so many times what happens is somebody will go and tell HR, or they go to tell a supervisor that this is happening, and that's where it dies. That's where that information, even in schools, you go tell the principal, or you go tell the teacher, and a lot of times that information dies with that particular person and nothing is ever done. So there needs to be what I consider like a bully-proof blueprint. You need to have some type of a blueprint of who you go to when things aren't getting done, to make sure that the bullying is getting addressed.
And Bullseye, I am sure that you have addressed that in your book.
I have, yes. And yes. Actually that's another thing that I would like to actually do, is go out into not only schools, but into other organizations, whether it be churches, because believe it or not, the bullying can happen in church as well.
Sure.
And going into businesses. Like I said, I worked at, some big corporations, but I was the peon. But I would love to go in and create blueprints for them and really, really focus. I mean, this is like a detailed plan of who do you go to? Who do you go to? What do you say? What happens if this person doesn't move this particular issue forward? There needs to be some type of discipline and, well,
like you said, a blueprint, an algorithm, whatever.
Just like you would if you were, building a building, or, just kind of like you see these organizational charts for companies, right. This person reports to this person, and this person reports to this person. Well, it should be the same thing. If this is happening here at this level, who do I report it to? If it's my boss who's, bullying me, who do I go to? Is there somebody above my boss that I can report this to? Right. And the same thing at schools. So many things, I watched this documentary on bullying, I think it was on Netflix, and the teacher was trying to get the bullied kid to apologize to the bully. And that just kind of frustrated me right there. I was like, oh my gosh, we need to get to this particular school.
Yeah, you need to set them straight.
Right.
You being a clown, I have a few happiness questions for you.
Okay.
If you could give us one tip for being happy, what would it be?
Do something nice for someone else.
Okay.
That's my big habit. Seriously, that's what transformed my whole life around, and then it started from that moment that I went on that tour with Patch Adams. That was my job for 14 straight days, was doing nice things for other people. I didn't expect anything in return. I wasn't being paid. A humanitarian clown, usually pays to travel. So I paid to travel to Russia. I paid for my airfare. I didn't get paid while I was there. So I did that because that is something that I wanted to do. And I'm planning to go to Morocco in March or April next year, Guatemala in September. And those are things that I do because that does good for me as well. That keeps me happy. And so that would be my number one thing, is one of the things you can do to be happy is do nice things for the people.
Now, you told us about your book, Bullseye on Bullying, Your Blueprint to Beating the Bullies. You've touched upon that, so I want to ask you about that. But is the book out there? Is it available?
It will be out on Black Friday. Yay!
Wow, that's coming up.
Yeah, so it is. It's going to be brand new. Yes.
So this Friday, it'll be there on this Friday.
This Friday, yep. This Friday
Oh, wow.
It will be out.
Okay.
Like I said, I've actually had it done for maybe a month or so, but then it's had to go through edits and formatting and, putting all the graphics in. And
right.
I mean, it's not a big book, and it wasn't designed to be a big book. It was designed to be like a pocket guide. So you carry this around with you. And if you're being bullied, or if you find there's a situation, you should be able to flip to a chapter right away to, I have chapters on, workplace bullying and cyberbullying and bullying in senior citizen, resorts and things like that. I have ways, chapters on just about everything. And what you can do if you find yourself in this particular situation. So it's like a 65-page book. It's not very, you can probably read this thing in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. But like I said, it's also interactive, so you can actually write in the book different things as well.
Oh, okay, like a journal. What is your main takeaway message, Bullseye, to the people out there? What's your main takeaway?
My main takeaway would be nobody cares more about you being bullied than you.
Okay.
So a lot of times you just have to take care of yourself and do what's right for you. And what you're going to find is, what worked for me may not always work for you. And that's why in this particular book, I have tons and tons of advice. So maybe some of those don't work for you, but find something that does work for you. Something will work for you. But you got to care more about you being safe than anybody else does. A lot of times people just chalk it up to, oh, that's just, that's just Mary being Mary. No, that's not Mary being Mary. That's Mary's a bully. And
so I think what you're saying is don't rely on others, rely on yourself.
Yeah. Like I said, rely more on yourself than you do on other people. That's not to say that you can't tell other people and try to get other people on your side, but yes. But yes, you need to take care of you.
Bullseye, how can people contact you?
Well, you can contact me at bullseyetheclown.com.
Okay.
I'm also on Facebook. You can type in Bullseye the Clown. I'm on Instagram. I do have a YouTube show. It's called Bullseye on Bullying. So you can just type in Bullseye on Bullying on YouTube, and you will see me there. I do videos once a week on some aspect of bullying. And if you have questions, you can always write the question in and I will do a video on that.
Okay. I'm going to include all that information in the podcast notes. I want to thank you, Bullseye, for being on the podcast and enlightening us on your perspective of the bullying issue and your techniques to help people get to a better place in their life and rise up against being bullied. All the best to you going forward. Comments and suggestions to better the podcast are welcome. You can email us at itsarapwithrap@gmail.com. We have a website, itsarapwithrap.com. You can drop your email address in there to get on our mailing list. We have a Facebook page, It's a Rap with Rap. Also a Facebook group, It's a Rap with Rap. And we're on Instagram, It's a Rap with Rap podcast. We're also on YouTube, It's a Rap with Rap, the podcast uncut. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please stay safe. And for now, it's a wrap.